Well, hello, everybody. I guess we're turning into women. We're just late. That's very sexist. But Derek goes, I'm not going to.
Wow.
You guys made fun of me. You guys made fun of me, so I'm not going to tell you when to be on time. So, well, welcome to No Driving Blues. Yeah, even though he yelled at us 15 minutes ago when we were all showed up at 8:46 for the pre-call. But we're here.
Listen, I'm either 5 minutes late or I'm a half hour early. There is no in between.
We've got JDD, so it's almost like that famous saying. And we just need if we get Will back, we would have WJD. We would have WJDD, and if we could get somebody else, we would have it. Something about Elvis. I don't know. Let's get talking cars. Derek, you were on vacation last week, weren't you?
I don't know if I'd call it vacation, John. I call it my yearly pilgrimage to the Motor City, now that I don't live there anymore, for the greatest antique automobile show on the face of the earth, known as Old Car Festival. I was waiting for you to expand on that, but thanks for not doing anything, guys. And
I'm sorry. I'm looking at various pictures and making sure things are working. Yeah, that's my job.
So, yes, I was at the Old Car Festival in Greenfield Village and had a fantastic time. Found out in the pre-show that one of our fairly new listeners and a friend of Dave's, who actually I met briefly in college when we all went to college together, was there. So I have to apologize to Disapproving Cat for Dave not telling me that you were going to be there so I could say hello. I always pass the buck, as you can see.
Culpa.
But yeah, it was a fantastic show. As always, somewhere between 700, 750 antique cars, defined by Old Car Festival as 1932 and earlier, and must be, basically the way they came from factory, whether that's unrestored or restored. Other than the speedster class and race cars, it can get a little vague there, but beyond that, it's pretty fantastic. And as always, for the last, 8-10 years, I had the honor of being one of the narrators for the Pass in Review parade, both Saturday and Sunday. So got to talk about a lot of very cool cars. And of course, being that I attend and work for a automotive museum, I normally take a vehicle from the collection I am working with. So this year I took our 1924 Citroen 5CV. And basically, anytime I was not on the narrating stand, it was good odds that the car was driving around the village in the open driving that they do, because I had the car there and it was fun to drive. So I was driving.
You know when the last time I was there was? 2009. No, I still have the button. Yeah. I was there with you. No, that's
just saying, do you remember the last time? Well, if I knew it was the last time you were there with me was the same time, then yeah, I was going to say probably around 9 or 10. But, you could have gone back as a family to see the museum.
No, and actually that weekend coincides with my oldest birthday, which is a big reason that I haven't been there in a long time, because, I think we missed his second birthday to be there the first time. So, but I was going to bring him with me this year, but events interceded, unfortunately. But I will get back there, because you're right. It is probably the most magical automotive show on earth, especially when the lights go down and everybody turns on their lamps and they're all cruising around, and the live vintage music and the people in period costume and all the buildings that Henry Ford collected. Like, there's just nothing like it. Like, I'd like to see Motor Muster too, but those cars don't seem as suited to the village as the 1932 and earlier stuff.
Well, and that is the magic, as you say, of Old Car Festival, is the period appropriate vehicles within the village. And also at Motor Muster, there isn't the open driving route. The only time cars are typically driving is to go through the pass and review parade and maybe to, move, either leave for the day or come in for the day or some other reason. But they really restrict that due to, once you get up into the later years, the 60s and 70s, you've got some fairly high horsepower cars there. And, they try to keep people going slow in the village. The speed limit is 15 mile an hour in the village whenever you're there, no matter if you're a T driver or during every day or when you're there for Old Car Festival. They try to keep it at a reasonable rate, and Motor Muster just doesn't always lend itself to that. Although I will say I have been able to go back to Motor Muster in the last couple of years. My lovely wife's job for a number of years here in Bowling Green was overlapped the Motor Muster show, so we couldn't make it most years. They had a big fundraiser for the museum she worked for, Father's Day weekend, of course. And now that she's no longer working with that institution, but volunteering there, we can normally skip out on the Father's Day event and go to Motor Muster and have good used car fun, as I like to call it.
Some people seem to think that they were having control with or crowd control or driver control there. Somebody's DC saying something about
I don't
keeping people slow.
I mean, I don't remember any 5 CVs speeding through the village, but I really wasn't paying that close of attention. No, even at Old Car Festival, we do get a few.
And you would have noticed, especially because you were driving one.
Yeah, exactly. The only one there. We occasionally, some of the speedster guys and the race car owners can get a little rambunctious, let's call it. Actually, one of them kind of spun their tires leaving pass and review, which we try to frown upon. But some of the early cars are big engine cars. There's a beautiful big Fiat running around, and sometimes some of those big engine cars, although they're not going over that like 15 mile an hour speed limit, just the setting they're in, having to take off with like a cone clutch or, something that people don't understand how a car of that period acts. People can think they're doing something inappropriate, but in reality, it's just trying to get the car going based on the, cone clutch and chain drives and, whatever it is. And it seems like they launch quite quickly, but it's just because that's kind of what they have to do sometimes. Needless to say, I've had a friend get yelled at in one of his race cars, and it was merely the fact that it was a period race car and he had to get it going in first without it stalling. So that was Old Car Fest.
I watched a big chain drive touring at Pebble spin its wheels.
At Pebble, when the grass is wet at dawn patrol, and you're trying to get on the field with a, I don't know, 90 horse simplex that's dual chain drive, and you stop to get your goodie bag, and then you got to get going again. The tires, especially when you have, straight rib tread on those tires, they may spin and make the car go sideways a little bit. Not speaking from experience at all.
Yeah.
Only one of us has broken teeth on a car, and it's not me.
Thank you,
Mr. Experience, though.
I think when Barbers had their Ferrari at Pebble and they won their class, and Surtees was driving it across the podium, they actually pushed it because it's a very temperamental car. It was a little bit moist, and Derek will know who I'm talking about, but my supervisor at Barber kind of did a face plant as he slipped on the ramp pushing the car up. So, hey, there's if you're gonna do something and you're gonna embarrass yourself, do it in front of everybody. Don't try. It doesn't count. Like
everybody.
Like I was at Hilton Head one year, and some poor guy's emergency brake failed, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was a Packard. Maybe it was.
The Packard.
It was the Packard rolled into the lake.
I thought that was at Amelia.
That was at. No, that one wasn't. The one I'm thinking of was at.
It was Hilton Head because it was the year it was 2017 because the car had unveiled at Pebble Beach. It was directly in front of me going across the ramp when I was in the Elko limousine. And then it was like a couple months later, which would be Hilton Head, November. I heard the news that it went into the pond, if you will.
Yeah, and it went into the pond. Wow. It was a recreation of risky business. The best you can with vintage automobiles. But you know what it did?
The Packard that I was in, the Packard that I was in at Amelia the one year in the tour that caught fire. They actually put that car back together and drove it onto the show field the next day with the paint all burned off the hood. And then to be extra good sports about it, they served everybody s'mores. So it was nice. I think the car's been all fixed since then. I know the car's been all fixed since then, but they were good sports about it.
Now you say it, I remember the year you caught the Packard on fire. I remember that.
I disclaim all responsibility. I was 8 feet away in the back of the tonneau. It was like riding in the back row of a Suburban with the middle seats taken out, in the back of that 14 Packard, except the Suburban has no top. You're at the same ride height looking down into everything. It was glorious. I'd love to tour Yosemite or Yellowstone in one. That would be amazing.
I restored, we got halfway through before the guy gave up, a 1917, or was it 15? I think it was a 17 Packard Cloverleaf Roadster. It was one of 3 or 8 cars or something. And it was owned by, the original owner was a railroad magnate, and it's the car they'd load up on the train and take everywhere. And there was belief we were probably pulling some mud out of this car from Yellowstone and places like that, because he hunted basically with this car, and the owner we were restoring it for bought it in 58. So he bought it directly off of the family, and we were restoring it in 2005, 2006 for him. And he used it as his daily driver in high school and all kinds of things like that. Real interesting man, was a lawyer and a doctor, and still couldn't afford to restore it. And let you know how expensive that shop was. But what I was going to say about
Packard, how fitting for a Packard that it would be loaded onto rail cars and shipped around the country. So
we learned lots of little neat things about that car.
I want to do that now with my private rail car.
Private rail car? How about your private railroad? Well, you gotta have your own train.
Is that even a thing? I thought that was the 19th century.
Actually, there's a guy.
Actually, it would be, speaking of parks, and how about that 1913 Mets from the famous picture on top of the rock I think that's in Yosemite, right? Somewhere out west.
Yeah, I think it was
Yosemite. That'd be one to find and restore.
Well, I'm going to use that as a segue. Not the electric scooters, but it would be neat if that picture would pop up, because we were supposed to focus. I've got some rants here later on in the show for if we get to them, but pop-up headlights or pop-ups, as one of my titles says, why did we make the wrong ones go away? We made pop-up headlights go away, but we still get these damn pop-ups on the internet. Let's reverse. I miss my pop-up headlights. Or even I'll go hidden headlamps. I won't even narrow it to just the pop-ups. And those that have seen my graphic for the show, we have the first pop-up headlamps on the Cord, and then the last two cars that had pop-up headlamps, the 04 Corvette and the 04 Lotus Esprit. Picture behind me. I got to watch the right screen here. So what are you guys' feeling on pop-up headlamps? Derek probably doesn't know too much because he's pre-30 with all of his cars.
What's that supposed to mean? Come on. No, I think they're kind of interesting.
Well, I grew up with the set in the house. My dad had a 69 Corvette.
Nice. And yeah, I mean, I think they're interesting. I think they, of course, the Cord 810, 812, a little different. You had to crank those open, which is epic. But, I think the use of the pop-up headlight or the hideaway headlight or whatever term you want to use for them, I think it lent an opportunity to the designers to make the front ends of the automobile a much sleeker look. I still think to this day, many of the cars that have the pop-up hideaway headlights, like Corvettes, and even the C2, the C3 is really cool, but the C2 Corvette is probably, in my opinion, one of the coolest pop-up hideaway headlights, probably on any car. Just the way that they are integrated into that, front nose line that goes around and the way they flip. It's just, to me, it just, as I say, it lent so much to the ability for the designers to play around with the front nose of automobiles by using those. And even on the Cord 810, 812s, I think it's really cool. You've got, headlights and fender. And when they're not on and they're not, it's day, they're flipped around and it's a full fendered car with no light visible, right? I mean, you see the seam, but it gave it a whole different feel to the design of those cars. And that's my take on it. I dig them when they're done right.
I think Dave's legs reappeared, but I've always loved him. We had him when I was born. Obviously, our 70 Charger had the hidden headlamps. They didn't work, which goes back to what Jason said, is you can never get a design to last. And, they were on the 87 LeBaron and that as time went on. And I love, my picture behind me is of the 94, actually that might be a 92 Lotus Esprit pop-up headlamp, but I loved them on my 91 Lotus Elan M100, the very similar look on the pop-up headlamps. I just like the look. I think they're neat. I mean, I'll say I was a big fan when the federal government allowed us to have flush headlamps, and all these flush headlamps became the thing starting in the mid 80s. And I think that allowed the designers to go away from the pop-up headlamps, again, because of what Jason said, they always broke, and start styling around them. And then, of course, the EU screws everything up, and you can't have pop-up headlamps because somebody might, somebody who gets hit by the car might get hurt by the headlamp, let alone the front bumper. And to me, it's an unfortunate styling cue that has went away, and the designers are limited, by it. We'll give a moment for Dave to join us here. And Dave, what's your comment on it?
Well, thanks for the accommodation. I don't know where this lag has come from, but I can feel it on my end. I'm basically of the opinion that Jason is, which is it's one more thing to go wrong on the car. I mean, my dad used to joke about, can you imagine if Tuckers had entered production and after a few years they were driving around with rusted out fenders and that middle headlamp just swinging back and forth because it was no longer connected to the steering gear. And the winking hidden headlamp is another one of those things that you used to see all the time when we were kids, when those cars were still on the road and not being well maintained. And even Dad said that he took pride that his were in good shape, but the flip up headlamps on his 69 Corvette were, something finicky to be tinkered with. And at least they were better than the flip around headlamps on the RS Camaros at the same time. Now, personally, from a styling standpoint, I mean, I like mid-30s bulb and reflector headlamps the best. But I do like the hidden headlamps on the 42 DeSoto. And I'm not really sure if those were electromechanical or vacuum or what. And I didn't do my homework ahead of time, so I apologize. But they give that car a super distinct, extreme modern look when closed, which is all the time. And I would encourage everyone to go look up the old advertisements because, of course, they draw the cars longer, lower, and wider than they were in reality. So they look extra good that way. And they didn't make the big extended wheelbase Suburban DeSoto in 42, but they did make that same body in 46 to 49. And I always thought it would be neat to have a big Suburban with the hideaway headlamps from the 42 and all of the trim on as my sort of road trip vehicle with a rough hidden headlamps, but I don't think I would seek them out except in a few rare instances, and probably not on anything that I was going to use as a long-term daily driver.
And
I'm trying to catch up on the comments.
John.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll jump in because I think, we talk about styling or at least, okay, Dave mentioned it a little bit. I know I brought it up in the beginning and I'm going to be hung up on this styling thing, but the fact that EL Cord did it speaks to the fact that, it was an idea towards styling, because Cord was really a stylist when it came down to it. That's kind of how he wound up where he was, restyling the 24, 25 Auburns that were left over that needed to sell. And he always had his eye on design, but he wasn't the only one and not the biggest name that it played around with the idea of these pop-up, hideaway, whatever headlights, because we have to remember that Harley Earl put hideaway headlights, pop-up headlights, whatever term we're going to use, on both the Y Job and the LeSabre when he did those concept cars. And he knew that to be able to do that, you would be able to impact the front end appearance of those vehicles and make them much smoother than having some kind of headlight mounted up there that's always exposed. So to me, it's just another thing saying that this was, in some ways, at least in the 30s and 40s and say into the 50s, it was heavily a styling influenced idea to do this. And I mean, it did make things look good.
I don't think pop-up headlamps were ever not a styling choice. I mean, there's really no practical reason to have them other than to flow the line.
Actually, no, there is coefficient of drag.
Aerodynamics.
Yes.
Well, yes and no.
Well, that was
I think that
why they chose it as a styling motif.
Yeah, well,
that's not why Cord and Harley Earl did.
Yeah,
they were still big flat front cars.
You can say that, but if we go, we'll go Ferrari, because Ferrari is kind of the best example of it. If you take the 365 Daytona Spiders, some had the pop-ups and some had the plexiglass over the headlamps, depending on the country you were in. And so you always had the option of kind of going either way, but it does look much better. I think you add to the styling, and then you jump up to the Koenig Testarossas, and the owners of those always opted not to have the pop-ups because they said they would lose 3 or 4 miles per hour in top speed, or so the magazines claimed. I mean, who's really running this thing at 190 or 194 miles an hour? You would think because at night it would cool down and they'd get colder air that they could recoup those 4 miles per hour that the headlights were costing them. But I mean, I was playing around here, and those watching probably saw I was distracted, and I'm going to do one of these things that I hate doing because we are, what do I want to say? A audio podcast, but I think this is the right button to push. But Ferrari, oops, I guess my Facebook thing changed here. Let's see if we can go back to this. I don't know how to go back here. Well, we'll find it.
John's a brave man sharing his screen, never knowing what's going to pop up.
Well, you run this risk, and I like to live dangerously. It's the old Michael Keaton movie, Johnny Dangerously. So here we go. I think I've got it now. Where Ferrari tried to reintroduce the pop-up headlamp in 2021 on what was it, the Daytona FX3 prototype or whatever. It's nice to see that there's no practical reason to have that other than Derek's response there. Oh, that's you get this orgasmic feel from it. But
and I like that. While you're jumping around there, John, I want to jump in because Philemont Auto Show mentioned the clamshell headlights on the 65 Rivieras, and that was cool too. That was definitely a cool feature where they had the clamshells that just kind of
those. And I like the C4 headlamps. Jason mentioned it earlier, the 180 degree flip. I still don't know if there's a real reason behind that. And really to watch them function and see them function, it's always kind of a mystery because where the hell's the pivot? Where's the hell's everything? It's, they're flat, then they go 180 degrees, and then they're kind of flush again with the headlight popped up. Where's the hinge in that? But those are my two favorite. And I think what you were saying, I never liked them on the 68 to 72 Corvettes because I hated it when they were retracted. You could see the headlights through the little grill. That drove me nuts. When they're hidden, they need to be hidden. But personal opinion. We're pausing for Dave comments.
Yeah.
Dad just wanted the Corvette because it was the best handling car you could buy, and it took a high revving small block Chevy. The lamps were totally secondary to him. So, I think I at least always felt the same way about Camaros. I was like, who cares about this RS front end? Like, it's the one that they tout and the one that everybody supposedly wanted. But I had a plain front Camaro, as Derek will recall, and I thought that was just fine. I happen to like the way sealed beam headlamps look. There's nothing wrong with the headlamp being on display. And I just, it's the reason I prefer to drive practical looking little compact cars that have a little extra in them versus something that looks super sporty, because it's just, why advertise? Give me the fast nerd car, and you can keep the obvious hypercar where the cop will see it.
No, I mean, it's even if you go through the generations of Miatas, I love the first generation NA Miata 90 to quote 97, 90 to 96. Just because that car has pop-up headlights, I discount just about every other Miata. And I mean, those are getting old, but I still don't know if I could bring myself to buy any other generation Miata other than that original. And of course, that harkens back to another really cool pop-up headlamp or rotating headlamp the Lotus Elan that the Miata was designed around, those headlights actually roll longitudinally to the car, and just kind of another play on things. And of course, a lot of this, as Jason said earlier too, is vacuum. And I don't know why the heck you do vacuum and not electric motors and such, but I guess you're already producing vacuum in a car, or etc. But
well, traditionally, because it was more reliable.
What are you? Let's go back. I guess, Dave, this is a question to you, or did I miss the answer? Because Derek alluded to his favorite pop-up headlamps, and I mentioned my favorite cars with pop-up headlamps. What were yours?
Oh, did it not come through my long waxing about how much I like the 42 DeSoto?
Oh yeah,
no, it didn't. John just wasn't paying
model
attention.
Year car.
Yeah, John was busy looking for his Ferrari pictures.
I have that effect on people.
And I'm going to comment to Jason. You need to go back and listen to last week's episode, Jason. We totally interviewed Dave last week, and we didn't see you in the comments. So I don't know if you caught last week's, but we talked about that, and we've got a new feature we're gonna launch on the show probably November-ish. We'll probably start working on them in October. Could launch it in October, but we're gonna do we're going to talk about one car we owned every episode. And it's going to be like 3 minutes. 1 week it'll be Derek, 1 week it'll be me, 1 week it'll be Dave, the next week it'll be me, then it'll be me. And because I don't know, we'll find out who's owned the most cars here.
We will burn through Dave and Derek within the first about 15 to 20 episodes. And then John will talk for the next 3 years about cars he has owned.
John is on that point where
we'll just have to buy some more along the way.
Yeah, I'm getting antsy. I really want to get something else, but I just can't come to terms with how expensive cars are. And somebody tried to help me today. We're driving along in the rain, sitting at a stoplight, and I had done a lane change and got in front of this pickup truck that had been giving tons of room to everybody around it. And we're sitting there at the stoplight, and the poor 19-year-old kid let his foot up off the brake or something and rolled into the back of my Ford. No damage. And I think he was happy, because we're talking like a 19-year-old kid in his $100,000 Ford Raptor. So he was probably going to have to tell mom and dad that he took out a car. But no, I mean, square hit. My bumper's not moved. My trunk opens. There's no damage to my car whatsoever. So I praise my Fiesta a lot. I mean, I pick on it a lot, but it's the only car I've ever had that a 5-mile-an-hour bumper actually worked. And he was so happy.
My mom got rear-ended in the Fiesta that I came home from the hospital in. That car survived too.
Not in the same day, right? I mean, it wasn't like, oh, we're bringing Dave home from the hospital.
But I was,
bam, we get rear-ended, and then everybody's like, oh, so that's what's wrong with Dave.
No, but I was there. I was in one of those 80s bucket car seats, the little plastic tub.
I was in our 70 Charger when it got rear-ended. And God only knows if I was in a car seat. Probably. I remember my old car seat. It was a black Naugahyde type thing with a flip down. It's like getting into a roller coaster loosely. You'd sit in there, and this little thing padded bar came down in front of you. That was my child safety seat.
This conversation is worrying me because I have no memories in car seats.
Well, I think we used the same one for my brother.
Package shelves? Do you remember those?
Oh, totally. Yeah,
that's what I remember.
And of course, we've talked about it on the show before Dave's time here, but the rear-facing station wagon seats.
We talked about those many a time.
Yeah.
My parents insisted on buying a safari van when we could have had a Pontiac Safari, and I would have been much happier. But I've never experienced the rear-facing or side-on-side. I think Ford used people facing each other.
Yeah.
Positions
Ford
in a
did,
wagon.
yeah.
So yeah, no.
Please,
I've always
Dave,
wanted one.
let's use the proper terminology. Vis-a-vis. Face to face.
Okay, there we go. Vis-a-vis seating.
I think Derek hung out with a Citron a little too much.
Doesn't it mean window to window?
What? No.
I guess vis would be visage. Yeah.
Yeah. Vis-a-vis is face to face, and do-si-do is back to back seating. Come on, guys.
Do was a
Where's the
square
carriage
dance move.
terminology?
That's terrifying. The back to back. Like you just see the road receding behind.
That's wonderful.
Probably not so much in a wagon tail gunner, but I'm thinking of like the brass cars where your feet are dangling over the rear axle.
Yeah, back in the 70s when we had that rear facing, you had that rear facing seat. You could have got away with putting a fake machine gun out there and pretending to shoot the people behind you on the road.
That's where I was going to go was, man, why didn't we do that for like Halloween, right? Like we need to, no driving gloves needs to find one of these station wagons with a rear facing seat. We need to dress it up as a World War II, bomber with a tail gunning position. And we need to just drive around on Halloween as the World War II crew and have a tail gunner.
See, in the 70s and 80s, you would have got away with that. If you tried to pull that now, you would be in jail before you got off your block.
You'd get pulled over. Yeah.
Hey, whatever. It's Halloween.
You know what we should do for Halloween is we need to hold a seance in an old car. See if we can get a hold of some of the previous owners.
Ooh. I'm liking
some of those 70 shaggin' wagons.
Right.
Get out the Ouija boards.
Well, I mean, we could use the Ouija board, but we probably need something that we're old enough that we know the people that owned it originally are dead. Like,
most people with 70 like shaggin' wagons
pre-war.
Yeah, I don't think you want the 70 shaggin' wagon. All of a sudden, your grandma comes back and tells you about all the things she did in there. That's not. I mean, obviously, we're all here for a reason, but
you could get into a VW bus from the 60s. I just like to hear some of the stories.
Well, we can find living people to tell those stories.
Yeah.
No.
Now that you're on this, though, Dave, now I'm curious if anyone has tried to do this in, say, like Al Capone's Cadillac or any of the like gangster owned cars or like
Bonnie and Clyde's model.
Bonnie, yeah, I was just saying the V8, the Bonnie and Clyde V8 that they were shot up in. Any of those. One? Like, I wonder if anyone has tried the one that they ultimately were.
They only got shot and killed in one of them. There are many of them out there, but
well, no, there were a bunch of them claiming to be the car, and I think they have since established it, but there's still like 6 around the country masquerading as the Bonnie and Clyde death car.
Yeah. Well, James Dean makes his presence known. Yeah. Dave and I are on the same page. James Dean Porsche keeps coming back and getting people.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Houdini famously never comes back when they try to contact him, but it's connected. He died in Detroit in 1926.
Yep.
On Halloween.
What was it? Didn't he tell his wife that there was something to it as well, that he told his wife she should never try to reach him because he would never respond or he would never come back? There was something very weird about it. We're getting way off topic, but hey,
who are we talking about?
It's after 9:30.
I missed the name.
He was a famous skeptic as well as an escape artist.
No, I thought he wanted his wife to contact him, and she did it for 10 years, and then thought, "No, I'm good."
This is what it was.
Yeah, she tried to contact him on the day of his death for 10 years and then gave up. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, he wanted to prove that it couldn't be done. Yeah.
And it's kind of like Lotka on Taxi. I can't think of his real name. Andy Kaufman. That he was going to fake his death and then return in whatever it was, 2012 or 2010. Which would really suck if you faked your death and you were going to do that and then you died in between.
Yeah. We're still waiting, Andy. We're still waiting.
So they're all, he, Elvis, Colin Chapman, all living in their place in Argentina partying.
I've heard there's actually a
Elvis works at a Burger King in Kalamazoo.
Well, that's true. I've heard there's actually a secret land in Antarctica where they're all at, but what? You guys don't believe the Antarctica thing? Come
on. That kind of just gives me chills thinking about
it. Back to headlights and pop-up headlights. Are there any we are missing that we haven't talked about? Or, I mean, obviously, like Disapproving Cat throughout the Buick Riviera, which had the clamshell style, anything like that. Because, personally for me, obviously, my cars are too early for the pop-up headlights. I mean, really, most of the cars I like have removable headlights because you take off the gas lantern and use it to also find your way to your front door. But,
if you have the gas lantern,
you got to put them on.
I say, if you have the gas lantern, is that like HID lights today? And if you have candles, they're the incandescent light bulb, the old whatever it was, 2054.
Well, no, the high intensity would be the acetylene gas lamps because they're a very intense white burn. So that would be your high intensity. Yeah, you're like kerosene oil lamps. I'm not sure.
Jason threw a good one out there, the 928, and that would also go to the 968 Porsches had the exposed headlamps that flipped forward. Those were interesting. I threw out a couple of weeks ago when we kind of talked about this, the Bradley GT. It used doors that dropped flat, and it was a kit car, so and it was ropes. You pulled these ropes and you raised them, and you loosened the ropes, and the headlamps opened. So it's kind of like the Cord. So, I mean, there's lots of cars that have had them, but the unusual ones that are out there. What's that exotic, the white exotic, starts with a C. It's a V16, and it had multiple rows of pop-up headlamps going up each fender. I can't think of what that's called. Wow. I can't pronounce it if I could think of it.
I'm blanking on that one.
Let me see if I can pop this up here. V16.
While John's looking for that, Dave, we can talk about
the
the Cizetta.
Cizetta Marauder V16T, and it's got.
I knew it was waited for you to almost be there. Yeah. Thanks, Disapproving Cat.
I have never heard of that car.
Yeah, and the F40 had the dual pop-ups. Well, it had a standard light and then a pop-up light behind it, like Jason was mentioning. I was trying to think of what else. What other funky pop-ups have we seen over there?
Didn't the 54 Buick Wildcat 2 have hidden headlamps?
I'm looking it up.
It was a Motorama show car.
Yeah. No, they weren't. I've worked on that car when I was interning at Sloan. No, they were just tucked into those like the fender cutbacks.
Yeah, I
They were
see
just
that.
kind of tucked back in, so you couldn't really see them well.
Yeah,
Obviously, disapproving wasn't listening. We talked about
gave
the
kind
Y
of a
job
20s
and the
fender
Saber
effect.
earlier. Yeah, it gave it that. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the companion to the LeSabre? The X400? XP400? Something like that?
XP, yeah, XP, yeah, I think it's XP 400.
That's a beautiful piece of work. That and the Y job. I love both of those. I got to see the Y job at the Quail a few years ago. That was an amazing experience because, such an influential car in terms of the styling of that era.
Sorry, XP 300.
I'm not sure what collection that's in.
Which
XP
car?
And that one was actually designed by Charles Chain.
Yes, the XP 300 is also at the Sloan Museum in Flint, Michigan. I also, while I was an intern, had the chance to do some stuff on that and actually got to ride in it. So it's an impressive car.
Nice.
I was looking at the Vectors.
I drove a 49 Super once.
Nice.
So I was looking at the Vectors, and those are kind of standard. But the one that always seemed really odd to me, the 84 to 89 300 ZX, where it had the half of the headlamp was exposed, and then Nissan went from the Datsun 280, and then Nissan came about in 84, and you had the 300 ZX 2+2 or 2-seater, and they had that. Looked like,
I remember those.
Well, it looked like you also, when you got the turbo, it looked like they ordered the hood scoop out of J.C. Whitney and just glued it on the hood. It was kind of piecemeal car.
The funny thing is that you say that, John. We just, and this will be public within, actually, probably already is on the website, but Lane Motor Museum, we just had donated 1986 Nissan 300ZX factory race car from the person who raced it pretty much from day one up through its life, or at least built most of it and cared for it. It's the car, one of the cars that Parnelli Jones, PJ Parnelli Jones Jr. drove for Nissan and did a lot of racing. So kind of funny you bring that car up, because I've been staring at one for the last week and didn't even think about it.
Well, sometimes you just block them out. It's really funny. There's a collector here in Birmingham. He passed away about a year ago, sudden heart attack. Really, really nice guy. And I mean, he had his Lamborghini SVJs, and he had one of the new electric Hummer H1s, and big, massive car collection, Porsche GT2s and GT3s and stuff. But he had 4 immaculate Nissan 300ZX turbos, and he had 2 of them done, 2 of them were in restoration. I don't know whatever happened to him. One of those would be ideal for your collection too, especially being so close to Nissan.
Circling back to the partially exposed headlamps. Sorry, I think I got out of sync there. Circling back to the partially exposed headlamps, could that be a fail-safe feature? I'm thinking about, like, between the wars airplanes. Sometimes when they had retractable air landing gear, they still had a part of the tire stick out in case it wouldn't come back down. And thinking about how we just talked about how sometimes those things get unreliable as they get older. Would it still allow the headlamp to project some, or at least act as a way to see the car when it was on if it wouldn't open?
No, I couldn't see that. But when you mentioned that, the 88 through 92 RX-7, which was heavily styled on the Porsche 944, it was designed that when its headlights were retracted, you could still flash it. And they had a clear bar in front of them, so you could flash to pass or stuff without having to raise the headlamps. So it's kind of what you're talking about, different car.
But also, John, Lotus. And how Lotus did theirs was a failsafe.
Oh, when the vacuum failed, they popped up?
No, when you shut, they always pop back up. Not when the vacuum fails. Even when you shut the car off, after like 10, 15 minutes, Lotus headlights will slowly come back up. The reason they did that was because if you were out, say, if driving around, you went to dinner, you did something, it became nighttime, they wanted to make sure that your headlights were not ever stuck in the closed position. So when Lotus cars sit that have pop-up headlights, they, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but everyone I know of, they come up after a while, and that's the way Lotus intended it.
That's called a vacuum leak. I do not believe that's true. I will.
I read that that's why they did it.
I'll email a friend of mine who worked the line at Lotus during that era, Europa, Lotus, second generation Elite, XL, and things like that, and ask him if he knows if that was a failsafe or not. But I'll get an answer to that. Actually, I'd like to have him on the show. If you're listening, Richard, would love to try to get you on the show and chat with you. Which since we're talking Lotus, we're going to go ahead.
Speaking of
I'm going to
failed and safety,
I'm going to plug in next week's show. We're going to interview a gentleman named Matt Stone. He just wrote a book, DeLorean. This book releases next Tuesday. We'll have a link in the show notes about that. It's going to be available to ship. If you pre-order it, it'll ship to you on September 17th, and we're going to have him on the show on the 19th to discuss this book. I just received my copy today, so I haven't read it. I am a big DeLorean fan. I've got DeLorean by DeLorean. I've got Barry Weiss's book, and Barry Weiss is the guy that turned the lights off as he was leaving. He was the last guy to turn the lights off at the DeLorean factory. He was the last guy out the door. So this was presented to me as an interesting topic. And if you're listening to me, Bert, I heard you today on Mark Green's show, and I'm going to reach out to you because I really want to talk to you about your new Lotus book and get you on the show. Everybody who listens to the show knows I love my Lotus and spent many, many years playing with it, even though I am selling off a lot of my collection right now. But just upcoming show plugs there. And if you're a fan of DeLorean or have friends that are fans of DeLorean, let them know. Join us next week, and we'll give a good review of this book and find out Matt's insights, etc. I've got a full page thing here I could read to you, but you don't want me to read 5 paragraphs or something to you. What else we got going on, guys? Anything else personal? I talked about my car accident, upcoming shows.
I just want to say, if we're going to be talking about headlights, it's not pop-up, but favorite headlights of all time are Woodlight headlights. And I think Dave would agree with me. I think Dave's a fan of the Woodlights as well.
And what about E&J's? I think that's where my heart is, the cocktail olive of
Oh, really? Really? E&J's? All right. That's a good second. That's a good second. But Woodlights, man, just God, they look good. Can't see anything using them, but God, they look good.
They look like the severed heads of your robot enemies stuck to the front of your car. You know, there's matching Woodlight driving lights too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't afford them, so I will never have them on a car. Someday I'll be able to afford them because someday no one will care, and I'll find a pair in a junkyard and just be like, cool.
Oh, I'm slowly assembling a set of 1939 spec Guide 682Cs, which are the generic GM headlamp with the marker light on top. But they made an early version that's got the trim ring and the lens in common with the 37 and 38 Chevy for a bulb emitter setup instead of being a sealed beam like most of production was. So when they're done, they should be this perfect little football-looking streamlined modern headlamp that I can hang on my wall on my Headlantelope project. That's a Model A headlight bar.
How can you use any of the parts from the later ones that did have the sealed beams?
You're way beyond us, I think, or way behind on leg. And Jason, the 300, the 90 and newer 300 ZX utilize the same. Well, the Diablo utilized the same headlamp as the 300 ZX. But if you go through a Lamborghini, you will find a ton of its parts are available on a lot of other cars for a lot less money. I'm sitting here looking at the pictures of the WG Wood headlight from October 12th, 1926.
Yeah. So Disapproving Cat wants to
Wow,
know
were they that early?
On the headlight front, do daytime running lamps on modern cars annoy all of us? And I will say the ones that are like way too bright during the day really annoy me. I don't know why some companies do it. They seem to put in some high intensity bulbs or something in their running lights, and that annoys me. It's like, dude, I can see you just fine. Beyond that, I don't know. I don't mind daytime running lamps because although it's a bit annoying sometimes on a sunny day, you have to remember that most of those people have no clue when it's cloudy and raining that they need to turn their lights on. So all the better that we have lights that are just on.
Now, see, that's what irritates me. I love daytime running lamps. I think they're great. I think what Derek's complaining about the ones that are too bright are people who don't know how to use them and they're actually just running their headlights and have them on bright. But the problem I have with daytime running lights is when it does rain, people go, "Oh, the car's got the lights on already." You forget it doesn't turn on the tail lights, and the tail lights are more of what I'm concerned. I don't care if you can see where you're going. I care when I'm coming up behind you at 7 to 10, 15 miles an hour faster than you. And, oh, there's a car here without taillights on.
That's true. But John, yes, that's important. But I've also been in a situation where I don't know, dark gray car is coming down the road on a rainy day and I'm trying to pull out of a parking lot, or I'm making a right-hand turn at a stoplight, and the road is dark gray covered in water. The car's dark gray covered in water and doesn't have headlights on. Guess what? You don't see it. So
yeah,
that's my take. Is these people don't know they're going to need to turn on their headlights. At least we've got something.
I was going to put a kind of disclaimer in there. And I heard a tip the other day about driving in the rain. And I tried it today because down here in Birmingham, we're getting some of these after thunderstorms or whatever because of the hurricane that's going on. And they say if you put on your polarized sunglasses, even driving at night, it can help you driving at night, and it can help you in the rain by reducing some of that glare. And I tried it today, and I have prescription Ray-Ban sunglasses, and man, it made a difference. I'm use at your own risk, but I think that might be one of those good pieces of advice. And Jason, if you go back into our back catalog and look for the episodes with Sterling, he 3D printed his Lamborghini and utilized a lot of little parts in that. It's a 3-part episode, Sean and I don't know if Derek joined us for some of those episodes, but Sterling was on our show for 3 episodes. He's got a YouTube channel and literally 3D printed his Lamborghini. And I just got a new 3D printer that is just absolutely kick ass. If anybody wants my old one, it's for sale.
I'll give you $50.
I might consider it.
It's
$942. Say it's $942 for my old one on eBay or Amazon right now.
Wow.
I didn't pay that. That's twice what I paid, but I don't know. And I bought mine after the pandemic, so. So
John, did you want to try to get in any of your rants, or are we gonna hold off on rants until next? Well, 2 weeks.
My one rant. I think we'll hold off for a couple of weeks. It's about car pricing, and it's just this interview I heard today, and we'll talk about it in a couple of weeks. But it really irritated me. And I need to talk to somebody about it because the girlfriend just kind of got mad at me and left the room. So. That happens quite often, by the way.
I was going to say your co-hosts do that normally, so not going to help stalk us.
Pretend their mics don't work. Oh, my internet went down. So, Dave, we'll give you a second here. I'll give you a second for.
Give me a second to do what now?
For your lag to catch up, in case you have commentary.
It's killing me, guys.
I think it's Derek's fault. It's Derek's fault because you were just fine last week when he joins us. Derek's using up your internet from Kentucky. It's Kentucky's got to steal that New England internet.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have
worked great.
I have a supercomputer that's directly tied to Dave's internet, just sucking every ounce of it.
I don't know how the internet works, but that sounds logical to me. So anyway, what have I got going on? Yeah, I'm working on the HVAC system of a 1983 Cadillac Sedan DeVille. Like, I got into old cars because I hated 80s cars, and now 80s cars are old cars, and so I'm working on them. And thankfully, I found nice people on the internet that were able to find me this unobtainium little plastic bit that broke inside the system, so that I didn't have to buy a brand new $200 motor that didn't appear to come with the little pin that I needed anyway when my existing motor works. And old plastic is the bane of my existence. Like, this is why I like metal and ceramic and I don't know, wood even, but not freaking plastic. Of course, if I had a 3D printer and knew how to use AutoCAD, it might be a different story, but that didn't happen for me. So maybe it's not too late. I'm only 42.
Dave, I can get you a deal on a 3D printer.
I didn't miss that part of the conversation. I was just 5 seconds behind the rest of you hearing it.
I know, but it only costs you $75. So.
Well, in that case, actually, I got an AM broadcasting unit I'm not using. I can trade you straight up.
That's tempting. That's tempting. Although your wonderful wife explained to my wife exactly how much power it sucks.
Well, Dave, you can just tap into Dave's electrical too.
Yeah, use my electrical too. I use my internet.
Jason, Dave's in New England. Dave's in New England, not Michigan. You need to listen to last week, Jason. You miss a week, you miss it all.
But I'm in Vermont.
All right. Well, does that wrap it up, guys? We said everything we set out to say.
Not everything's forever.
No, we haven't said everything we set out to say, but we'll keep some for next week.
All right. Well, if that's the case, guys, I am going to close this out. As always, if you enjoy what you're hearing, possibly enjoy what you're seeing on the live stream, don't forget we've got these wonderful QR codes in the corner. Go ahead and buy us a coffee, or I don't know, 2, 3, 10, 100, whatever you feel like buying us coffee. We all like coffee and it helps the show, right? And of course, if you enjoy being part of the No Driving Gloves community and, getting to see the live stream and hear the audio and all the wonderful things we do, click that little golden bell on YouTube and click the like and follow stuff on the other social medias. I don't really know what any of it means, but I just say what I'm supposed to say. And of course, the best way you can help the three of us, the No Driving Gloves community, is help us grow, share the show.
And as we said last week, only one of us will give you a pitch at the end of the show. So talk to everybody later. Waiting for Dave.
Goodbye, guys. Keep your motors running.